I've always lived next to the woods. People say you get used to it, that the sounds of the forest become white noise after a while. That's not true, at least not for me. Every creak of the branches, every rustle in the brush felt like someone watching. My friends would laugh at me, saying it was all in my head. But I'll never forget the night I learned I wasn't just paranoid. It was around 3 a.m. when I woke up to the faintest sound. Tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought it was in my dream, the tail end of some restless nightmare. But then it came again. 3 slow knocks, deliberate and steady. My eyes snapped open. I sat there in the dark, frozen, listening. My bedroom is on the second floor. Nobody could just walk up and knock on my window. That's when my heart began to pound in my ears, drowning out everything else. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a tree branch swaying, maybe a bird, but there was no wind that night. The air was still. The knocking came again, louder this time. My body went cold, against every instinct screaming at me not to. I crept toward the window. My hands shook as I pinched the curtain open just enough to peek outside. What I saw will never leave me. A face. Right there, level with mine. The skin was pale to pale, with shadows carving into its cheekbones. The eyes were wide open, unblinking, reflecting the faint glow of my nightlight. For a moment, I didn't even register that it was upside down. The figure was hanging there, suspended against my house, staring straight at me. I stumbled backward, knocking over the lamp on my nightstand. The crash broke the silence, but the thing outside didn't move, didn't even flinch. It just smiled, not a normal smile, a jagged, unnatural grin that seemed to stretch too far across its face. I grabbed my phone. My hands were slick with sweat as I tried to dial 911, but the screen glitched and froze. No bars. I'd never lost signal inside my room before. It was like something was jamming it. The knock started again. Harder, louder. Tap, tap, tap. The glass shook with each strike. I swear I felt it vibrating in my bones. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My throat was locked tight with terror. The figure tilted its head, still hanging upside down, still grinning. Then it raised a hand, long, crooked fingers scraping against the glass with a screech that made my teeth ache. I bolted from my room, heart hammering, feet barely touching the ground as I sprinted to my parents' bedroom. I shook them awake, breathless, stammering about the man outside my window. My dad grabbed the bat he keeps by the bed and stormed down the hall. When he yanked the curtain open, there was nothing, just empty glass, reflecting his tired, annoyed expression back at US. I tried to explain what I saw, but he chalked it up to a nightmare. My mom made me sleep in their room the rest of the night, but the next morning proved I wasn't imagining it. On the siding below my window, there were deep scratches carved into the wood. For long, vertical gouges, starting low near the ground and dragging all the way up to the second floor, to hide for any animal. To clean, to deliberate, we patched the siding weeks later. But sometimes, when the wind dies and the house goes quiet, I swear I hear it again. Tap, tap, tap. And I don't dare look at the window anymore. I grew up in a quiet suburb where nothing bad ever really happened. From my second-floor bedroom, you can see straight into the yard next door. It's a square of grass with a maple in the corner and a motion light that almost never works. When the neighbors left for a 2-week vacation last summer, their house turned into a cardboard cutout, dark, empty, the kind of stillness that makes you feel watched even when you're alone. I wasn't trying to be a creep. It was past midnight. I had my lights off, and I was doom scrolling in bed when something moved in the corner of my eye. At first I thought it was a cat. Then I realized the shape was too tall. Much too tall. Someone was standing in my neighbor's yard. They weren't doing anything, just facing the house a few steps from the back door. No flashlight, no phone glow, no fumbling with the knob. The figure's arms hung too long at their sides, and their head tilted, like they were listening to something inside. I froze. I know everyone on our block. This wasn't any of them. I lifted my phone to take a picture, and in that split second, the shortest glance away, the figure pivoted. When I looked again, it was staring directly at me. I couldn't see a face. The yard was too dark for that, but I felt seen, the way you feel a camera pointed at you. I let the blinds fall shut, heart pounding. I told myself I'd imagined the turn. I told myself to stop being dramatic. Footsteps crunched on dry grass. Not next door. Below my window. I held my breath until my chest hurt. Something brushed the siding, a slow, scraping drag like a hand sliding along the wall. The sound came to a stop right beneath me. I waited for a knock. Nothing. Just that pressure of attention, like heat under a door. I finally dared to lift the blinds a centimeter. The yard next door was empty. So was ours. I don't remember sleeping, but morning came anyway. Over coffee, I asked my mom if she'd heard anything. She didn't look up from the paper. Probably raccoons, she said. We don't have raccoons. That night, I kept the lights off and the window cracked an inch for the breeze. I told myself I was being brave. Around 1:30 a.m., the motion light next door blinked awake for the first time in months, washing the maples in a sickly cone. The yard was empty. Then the light went out. In the blackout between breaths, a shape appeared under the maple, tall, wrong proportioned, like someone wearing a suit with extra joints. It took a step, and even from that distance I could tell something was off with the way it moved. Not a limp, not drunk, like it was copying walking and getting the timing wrong. I texted my neighbor, even though I knew they were on a plane. I typed, "Someone's in your yard." The message stayed undelivered. The figure drifted toward the fence between our properties and stopped directly opposite my window. It didn't look up. It didn't need to. I knew it knew I was there. I called the non-emergency number. By the time a cruiser rolled down our street, the yard was empty again. The officer walked the fence with a flashlight, shrugged, and told me to keep my doors locked. I watched him leave, feeling both stupid and not nearly scared enough. At 3:07 a.m., something tapped my window. Not glasswood, the frame. The tap came from inside the room. I flung on the lamp. My desk chair was inches from the sill, and the blind pull cord I always not high was hanging low enough to brush the wood. I laughed out loud, the sound too loud in the empty room. I tied the cord up again and sat on the bed, feeling the adrenaline drain. My phone lit with a notification from a camera I'd forgotten existed. An old Wi-Fi plug I'd set to monitor my window view years ago. Motion detected. Back camera. Curious. I opened the clip. The footage showed my window from the opposite angle, a faint reflection of me sitting on the bed with my lamp on. And out in the neighbor's yard, something I hadn't seen with my eyes. In the pale rectangle of glass, a silhouette stood perfectly still beneath the maple. When my lamp switched on in the recording, the silhouette turned its head toward the camera. Not me, the camera, like it could see the lens. I scrubbed it back and forth. In one frame, the figure seemed closer to the fence without having moved. In the next, the motion light flashed on for a single frame, freezing the yard in a heavy, overexposed white. In that single frame, The shadow had no shadow. I shut the app. The room suddenly felt smaller. The third night, I didn't pretend to be brave. I stacked books on the sill, wedged the window shut, and pulled the blinds tight. I watched the neighbor's yard through a tiny V between slats. At 12 a.m., the motion light struggled, flickered, and died again. A darker darkness pulled where the maple grew. The darker patch drifted like a stain across the grass. I texted a friend to come over, just to have another person in the house. She wrote back ohms and then nothing. I watched the typing bubble appear and vanish, appear and vanish. I put the phone down for 3 seconds to breathe, and when I picked it up, there was a new video from my back camera, recorded 10 seconds prior. The clip was 5 seconds long. It showed me, from outside the glass, peering through the blinds. Behind me, in my room, a shape stood at the closet door, head tilted. In the reflection on the glass, its grin didn't line up with where a mouth should be. I spun around so fast I got dizzy. The closet door was closed. My room was empty. I stood there listening until my ears rang. I don't know if this part is worse because it's mundane. In the morning, my neighbor texted, "We land tonight. Everything okay?" I asked if their motion light had ever worked. They said it was disconnected last year. There's no power to it. There hasn't been for months. They got home that evening when their car pulled in. Every porch light on our block came on like a neighborhood reflex. I watched from my window as they hauled suitcases across the yard. For a moment, the maple's shadow stretched wrong again, a second longer where it should have ended. Then it snapped back, like someone remembered how to hold the shape together. I told myself it was over. People in the house, lights on, normal. Life resumed. I slept with the window closed and the blinds tight. I woke before dawn to a notification I didn't want. Back camera, live view error. I tapped it with a shaking thumb. The feed was black for a breath, then brightened. It showed my window from outside, dew shining on the glass. In the reflection, my room was empty, but the blinds were open. And from somewhere else below the sill, too close to be the neighbor's yard, too close to be the street, came the sound of someone breathing, slow and patient, like they had all the time in the world to wait for me to look.
I've always been a night owl, so it wasn't unusual for me to still be awake at 2:30 in the morning. I live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the ground floor, and while most people would find that unsettling, I'd grown used to it. I kept my curtains drawn at night, but I had this bad habit of cracking the window open just a little to let some cool air in while I scrolled on my phone. That night, I remember the silence felt heavier than usual. No cars passing by, no voices. From neighbors through the thin walls, just this dense, suffocating quiet. I was half distracted, flipping between apps, when I heard something faint outside. At first, I thought it was leaves rustling, but then I realized my window was open just enough that the sound was clearer. It was breathing. Slow, steady, deliberate breathing. I froze, my phone's glow casting a pale light over my face. My heart began to pound in my chest so hard I thought it would give me away. I told myself maybe it was just my imagination, that maybe a stray cat was under the window. But then I heard it again, closer. I leaned forward just slightly, and in the dark reflection of my glass, I caught something. A silhouette, a head. Someone was standing inches away from my window, watching me. I bit down hard on my lip to keep from making a sound. My body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't even twitch. The man didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, breathing. I wanted to believe it was a prank, some drunk neighbor stumbling home, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I reached for my phone, trying not to let the light shift too noticeably. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers, and when the dispatcher answered, I whispered so softly I wasn't even sure she heard me. "There's someone outside my window." The operator told me to stay on the line and that officers were on the way. But while she was speaking, the man's head tilted, like he could hear me. The way his shadow shifted made me feel like he was smiling, though I couldn't see his face clearly. And then, slowly, he tapped on the glass. Just once. A deliberate knock. I nearly dropped my phone. The operator kept asking if I was safe, if I could get somewhere secure, but I was too afraid to move. If I ran, what if he broke the window and came in? After what felt like forever, I saw the faint blue and red reflection of sirens bouncing off the window. That's when the man finally moved. He stepped back into the shadows, and by the time the police arrived, he was gone. They searched the area but found nothing. No footprints, no sign of forced entry, nothing to prove he had even been there. The officers were kind, but I could tell they didn't fully believe me. "Maybe just a trick of the light," one of them suggested. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep. I nailed the window shut, bought heavier curtains, even installed a security camera. I replayed the footage every night before bed, but he never came back. At least, not that I caught on camera. But sometimes when the wind dies down and the night is perfectly still, I swear I can hear that same steady breathing right outside my window. And I'm terrified that one night I'll look up and see him standing there again, smiling in the dark,